All right, welcome. Today, we are building something huge. We're going to lay the foundation, the groundwork for what it really means to be a pro in the world of contract management.
So when I say contract management, what pops into your head? Be honest, is it just mountains of paperwork, a bunch of confusing legal terms, and signing on the dotted line over and over again? Look, a lot of people think that, but today we're going to totally blow that idea apart. Because if you think it's just paperwork, you're missing the real power, the strategic muscle behind it all.
The truth, it's really the architecture of success. I want you to start thinking of yourself as a master builder. Seriously, every single contract you touch, that's a blueprint. It's the plan for a new project, a critical partnership, a huge company initiative. And getting that blueprint right, well, that's not just some admin task. It's strategic. It's the difference between a building that wobbles in the wind and a skyscraper that touches the clouds. So here's how we're going to tackle this. First, we'll look at the master blueprint for the whole profession. Then we'll break down the contract story into 3 simple acts. We'll dive into the superpowers you need and wrap up with what it really takes to become that master builder. Okay, so every great building starts with a rock-solid blueprint, right? Well, in our world, that blueprint is something called the CMBOK. Let's dig into what that actually is and why it's so darn important. So, CMB book. It stands for the Contract Management Body of Knowledge. And really, it's the official rulebook. The best way to think about it is like the universal building code for our entire profession. It lays out exactly what you need to know and how you need to act to be considered competent and, just as important, ethical. It's the foundation everyone else builds on. And this building code is broken down into 5 main areas. You've got leadership, that's all about your vision. Management, that's your process. Guiding principles, that's your moral compass, your ethics. Then you have the life cycle phases. These are the actual nuts and bolts, the building blocks. And finally, and this one is key, you have learn, which is all about getting better every single day. Now, this part's really important to get straight. The CMBOK, that's the whole library of knowledge, right? It's everything. But the Contract Management Standard, or the CMS, that's the actionable plan you pull from that library. To put it super simply, the CMBOK is the what you need to know. The CMS is the how you actually do it. Okay, blueprint in hand, it's time to break ground. Let's start building. You can think about the life of any contract like a simple story, with a beginning, a middle, and an end, a 3-act play. Yup, pretty much every contract follows this exact path. Act 1, pre-award. This is all the prep work. Act 2, award. This is when the deal is made. And Act 3, post-award. This is where you see it through to the finish line. Sounds simple, right? Well, as always, the magic and the trouble is in the details. So in that first phase, the pre-award, you are the architect. This is where you're doing all the heavy lifting, the deep thinking. You're planning out the whole procurement, you're doing market research, maybe with something like an RFI, a request for information, and you're nailing down exactly what you need. This is where you put together the big documents, like an RFP, a request for proposal, to go out and find the perfect partner for the job. Then we hit the award phase. Okay, this is where the action is. The deal gets done here. You're poring over proposals, you're in those high-stakes negotiations, and you're making the final call on who gets the job. And yeah, this is also when you have to be ready to handle any bumps in the road, like disagreements or even formal protests. And finally, we land in the post-award phase. The ink is dry on the contract, but let me tell you, the work is nowhere near done. This is all about execution. You're managing the day-to-day of the contract, you're tracking performance, using things like KPIs or key performance indicators, you're dealing with changes as they come up, and this is so important, you're closing out the project properly to capture all those lessons for next time. All right, so you've got the blueprint, you know the phases of construction, but what about your tool belt? What tools do you actually need? Let's talk about the core competencies. I like to think of them as your professional superpowers. Okay, listen up, because this is a huge one, especially if you're studying for an exam. Leadership versus management. They are not the same thing. Leadership is all about people. It's about influencing them. It's the why behind what you do. It's your vision, your character. Management, that's about process. It's the how. It's the plans, the tools, the checklists, managing risk. You 100% need both, but you have to know the difference. So with all this going on, what keeps you on the right path? What's your North Star, your ethical compass? It all boils down to a set of core guiding principles, and there are 7 of them. And these 7 principles, they are your foundation. We're talking about everything from the hard skills, like compliance and legal principles, to the soft skills, which are just as important, like team dynamics and great communication. And let's be clear, these are not just nice ideas or suggestions. They are the absolute bedrock of how a professional acts.
And that brings us to maybe the ultimate tool in your tool belt, the learn competency. Think of it like a powerful feedback loop. It is the absolute commitment to taking every single project, the wins and the losses, and turning that experience into actual wisdom. Honestly, this is the one thing that separates the good from the truly great.
So we've got the blueprint. We've walked through the building process, and we've looked at the tools. Now it's time to put it all together. How do you take all these different pieces and actually become a master builder? A real pro, a master builder, lives and breathes these 5 things. It's not enough to just be technically good at your job. You have to have the integrity to do the right thing always, the judgment to juggle all the competing pressures, risk, value, rules. You need the accountability to own your results, good or bad. And there it is again, that relentless drive to keep learning and getting better. See, real mastery isn't about just knowing these things as a list. It's about weaving them together into a cycle that never stops. You plan, you execute, you reflect on how it went, and you improve for next time. Plan, execute, reflect, improve. That's it. That is the rhythm of a master. And hey, this is a fantastic little cheat sheet for you. It maps every domain we've talked about to its main focus. You can see right here how it all fits together. You know, how leadership is about influence, management is about systems, all the way down to learn being about improvement. It's the whole framework in one shot. Look, if you remember only one thing from our time together today, make it this. Success is not about being a rock star at just one of these things. It's about integrating them. It's about weaving leadership and management and your principles and that learning mindset into every single thing you do, through every single phase of the contract. So, I'll leave you with this. The blueprint is in your hands. You know the steps, you've got the tools. The only real question left is, what are you going to build next? Thanks for tuning in.